And we're live. Hey, welcome back to the weekly Roundup, special summit edition. Just for all of you who weren't able to make it, we thought you could live vicariously through the computer by us doing this to you. And checking it out. So we just finished up the summit, as you guys know, and I mean, what an insane time. I think, I don't know, this is the best one yet. Every year keeps getting better. This is the best one yet. We've got Terry's up on the yoga palapa. She's showing you there. Vicky's down by the beach. Carol is over by the pool. We still have some people around here. Mara's in the restaurant, which actually I can show because she's sort of behind me. So we're eating every day. There's a private beach here as well, obviously. But one of the things that I wanted to comment on for the Roundup is just that a huge theme of why the summit exists, but what definitely came out this time around as well, is that when you are physically in your yoga studio and in your business, despite your best intentions, it's very easy that you get caught up in the daily slog of what's going on. You get pulled back into the weeds, et cetera, et cetera. So it's hard, even if you put on your calendar, okay, I'm going to spend this day working on this thing, or plan out my next year, or figure out my big strategy. It's very easy to accidentally find yourself distracted and then unable to really focus in on getting that dialed up. So one of the things in the story that I have told, and many of you have heard many times, is Jenna and I used to rent a hotel. We would like order food in, paper plates, get the kids taken care of. Like we had to physically go somewhere else, even if it was like in the same town, and block the time out so that there was no possibility of distraction. And the summit this year, the annual Visionary Summit, because we'll do this every year or some version of it, that's exactly what this was. So what was cool is that everyone got to come here, and yes, it's a beautiful environment. The food is absolutely off the hook. Drinks were good. But then also, because you're away from your regular space, there was the ability to just really zoom in and focus on the working on your business part and coming up with your plan for the next year and figuring out what the strategies are and the tactics are. And then we even went so far as to, everyone got obviously a calendar. Everyone also got in their workbook sort of a, what do we call it, Mara? Not a diary, a planner. That's what it was. An agenda, a planner. So quite literally kind of a diary. We had journaling and stuff in there too. But the point being is people can not only identify what they need to work on, what's the strategy to do it, but then put it into their calendar and schedule it out for the year. So it's not only creating the space, but it's just like the separation to make sure that we've got the entire plan in place so that there's clarity on, for the next year, this is where my focus is and this is what I need to do. So for me, that was a huge takeaway, but I want to hear from the rest of the coaches too. Whoever else is ready to go, what do you feel like was an important takeaway from the summit that we can share with all of the yogapreneurs?
I would say just when we did the affirmations this morning about I will do by this day this thing, and this is why, and this is how I'm going to feel. I felt that was incredibly powerful, that they all got real clear on what it was, what they were doing in the coming year. And the other thing that I felt was incredibly powerful is just being together physically. The human, you mentioned the human to human interaction and connecting with your fellow like-minded entrepreneurs or yogapreneurs and making those friendships and those connections that then when you go back to your business, you have, obviously we have everything that exists in the internet, in the cloud and everything, but still having that, meeting that person in person, right? Having that, being able to hug them, being able to cry with them, to laugh with them, to have margaritas with them. And then I feel that's going to carry through when they're having an issue, whatever, they have people they can call and they know they can rely on, because it's it can be a lonely world as a yogapreneur. So that one for me was a big takeaway. That and the enneagrams, which we're going to talk more about next year. We're going to do a webinar on that, Josh. Just to let you know, us, we're going to be doing that next year. So go right. seven, go seven.
Yeah, Terry's definitely. Vicky, what do you feel like was, a powerful part of the summit or a takeaway that any yogapreneur could maybe benefit from?
I think the biggest thing for me was the realization how similar our situations are, independent of what our studios are like. So whether it's a huge studio, several locations, millions of dollars in turnover every year, or it's a little tiny studio with 10 classes a week and 2 teachers, everybody's kind of working on the same things. Everybody has the same problems, and the solutions kind of look the same, just on a different scale. And that was a really big realization for me, because I had this preconceived idea that these were different studios and it would require different methods, but it doesn't. So that was pretty amazing, actually.
That's a really good call out, Vicky. I would echo what you're saying, that, in the end, the fundamental success path is not so drastically different. What you're triggering for me was a huge commentary we talked about, is when you look at growing your business or scaling your business, it's not new strategy or some technique that you don't know that's really probably going to make it. It's not to say that there aren't best business practices or that you don't want to make sure that you understand what good strategy looks like. It's more to comment that the real scale comes from doing the small things that are proven and then doing them better and doing them more. So it doesn't matter whether, we had a studio who's in their first year, or a studio in their 20th year, or a studio in a large market or a small market. The details look different, but the general approach is not so far off. And that's what makes it really cool, because actually you have these owners of different perspectives able to share, like Terry was commenting on, but we're not sharing things that are so outside of each other's boxes that it's not valuable for everyone, no matter what. So that's a really good call out. Carol, what do you feel like?
Yeah, it was also
newest crew person. What do you feel like was a big takeaway or benefit from the summit that you could share with everyone?
Well, what I loved is that you would get immediate feedback on your vision, goals, and how to implement. Not to your other studio owners, and they might have already tried certain things, and you have right there. Zoning in on what's really going to help you, and maybe learn from other people's mistakes, and get that really clear quickly, instead of thinking too much about it or which direction to go. You could really get that feedback right away and make it happen.
Yeah, I love that. The instant feedback is really powerful. I think something that the Yogapreneur Collective is formulated for you to have a sounding board. So based on what you're saying, one of the comments that I would have is, coming to the summit is something that you absolutely, I think, would not only enjoy, but benefit from, any yogapreneur. But in the interim, in between, that's why you do your coaching calls and have that sounding board with your coach. And it's also why we have the community, where you're like, okay, this is my thought, this is what I'm planning, so I'm going to do. Like, what do you guys think about it? And you have that sounding board. I know that for the first studio I managed, I didn't have that at all. There was zero. And I can very vividly remember the frustration and stress that arose from coming up with what I thought was a good strategy or plan, having to learn the hard way and having to be so slow to figure out what actually was going to make the difference. Versus years later, when I was more integrated into the larger yoga community, I could ring up mentors of mine and say, what about this? And they say, I did it this way. Or what about, that feedback loop is really powerful. So I think leaning into that is great. And here is just the ultra amplified version of that, for sure. So, Mara, what about you, my friends? I mean, we didn't actually get to the details of social media and stuff quite as much. Also, we can see the shoulder. We got to turn the camera. Michelle is also there. Michelle's joining us on the Roundup as well. She's been down here organizational. We didn't get too deep in the weeds on social media and ads and stuff like that, but it did come up. But, from your perspective, Mara, especially as sort of a marketing ninja, what do you feel like was a powerful takeaway or realization that any yogapreneur could benefit from?
I really want to say that the number one thing I learned, and that everybody will take away from, is to always look behind pillows if you lose things. It has nothing to do with marketing. But I don't know, this isn't really marketing, but more operational. I think that they could benefit from is like planning events. So just my experience planning this event and helping so much in the back end with it. Because I know everybody will have an open house coming up. So really getting dialed with the small details makes a huge difference. We've been doing this now for 4 years, and I feel like this year was very organized, and like I knew exactly what we needed to do when, and having staff meetings and recaps every day really helped to make sure the whole team was on board, and we had like a meeting beforehand. And so when you are planning your events, making sure that you actually like have the day-to-day plan, or at least an overview, so it's really clear what everybody's roles and responsibilities are, because it makes a huge difference of the event going smoothly and running smoothly. And I've had a lot of yogapreneurs come up to me and say like it was really like well planned and like organized, and like it's just great to hear that. And so I wanted to share that feedback with you guys when you're planning your events, to really pay attention to those small details, because it makes a huge difference and it's less stressful when you have a solid plan. So nothing to do with marketing.
No, but I mean, that applies to every element of your business. And to your point, Mara, you know, events are something you have to obviously market, but more specifically, when you're talking operations, you and I have always had the approach, and I really appreciate how we've been able to implement that on our team, of higher frequency versus higher intensity. And what I mean to say is, it's like when we're planning the summit, we have a weekly meeting about the summit. When we're at the summit, we have a daily meeting about what's working, what's not, how do we adjust, what do we need to do tomorrow. And it's like, rather than waiting for this enormous pile to go through where it's like too much information and too many steps and too many tasks, you do it at a higher frequency so that you can break it down into these more bite-sized consumable pieces. And that's actually an enormous part of what we worked on here this year too, was, okay, we've got this vision, here's where we are, here's where we're going, here's the strategy, like here's the path between the two. But now how do we break that down into the simplest tasks, such as come up with a subject line for the first email to go out for launching the open house event. You know, like the smaller you can make, the more bite-sized you can make the piece, the easier it is. And it's like, you just find yourself moving forward. When you're looking at the big total picture of it, you have to have that vision, but if you're only looking at that, then it's confusing about what you should actually do practically. So yeah, Terry, go ahead.
I was just say so when Mara was talking about, we had the weekly summit and then the daily while we're here and with an event, made me think about one of the takeaways we talked a lot about is having those blocks of time for, as a yogapreneur, on your calendar, so that you are having weekly meetings, even if it's just the weekly meeting with yourself, if that's your full team, or if you have other members on your team, having those weekly meetings with your team. So again, things don't get out of hand. You're doing bite-sized pieces and putting it on the calendar and sticking to it, even if it's only 15 minutes, getting stuff done. So I think that was another big takeaway for a lot of the yogapreneurs that I spoke with and worked with is, okay, I need to put this on my schedule. It needs to be blocked out. It's like Sancricept, right? Unless it's like an emergency and you have to go to the hospital, you have that meeting. So I think that goes, and that's for your regular stuff, and then also like a special event thing like this.
Yeah, that's a good call out, Terry. I think one of the things that we commented on, and actually, Michelle, if you have anything to pipe in on this, because you know you do this better than anyone we know at this point, time blocking is powerful, but it's this concept of like, I might schedule in 2 hours on a Tuesday for me to work on my business, or even if it's not on like schedule, I might think that that's when I'm going to do it. But then we don't actually respect the time block. That's the hard part. It's like, I would never be like, oh, I'm just going to not teach yoga class at 5:30 because I have something else that came up. You respect the fact that it's scheduled in and like, it's absolutely going to fucking happen. That has to be the same approach when we're looking at time blocking as well. If you schedule in, I'm working my business for these 2 hours, like you have to respect it. Nothing else, barring an emergency, can take away from it. Michelle, maybe if you have any insights, because one of the things that came up that I'm curious about that you do very well is time blocking, like planning the week, time blocking, then also going back into the calendar and saying, okay, at this time block, here's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is to have your time blocks in your calendar, just like we were saying, just like it would be an appointment with anyone else. It's an appointment with yourself and you don't break it. If it's in your calendar, that's what you're doing. And then using, if you use Google Calendar, if you use a desktop calendar, whatever it is, writing in the tasks at the end of the week on a Friday, go back, look at the next week, think about all the tasks that you're trying to do. Josh and I talk about the top 3 things for the week. So those are our big things for the week. And then all of the little tasks that we do throughout the week are only in service of those three big things. So blocking in the time to do those things and focus on them, but also putting in the details of, okay, during this 2-hour time block on Monday morning, when I know Josh, his brain works the best in the morning. So that is his time to work on these 3 tasks. You put them in the calendar. It's an appointment with himself that he must keep, usually. And it's just a great way to organize yourself and keep yourself accountable by physically putting it down on paper or in your Google Calendar.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. 80-20 rule, first off. 80-20 rule. But the detail that we're alluding to here as well is like when I go in and there's a time block for me to work on something, we call them deep work times. And then I look at it and it says in there like 1, 2, 3, like top priorities, not for the week, but of that time block. It eliminates the 30-minute wasted time where I'm like, what should I do next? And what am I working on? And where's my focus? I can just get into it and get into flow right then. So when you look at that and it compounds over a week or multiple weeks and then months of time, you spending 30 minutes once a week to be like, what happened? What are the next big things? And blocking the time out. It seems like that's an additional task to do, but actually it saves you so much time over the long run, 1, and 2, and this is for me personally, I can attest to this too. It saves you so much stress. Like so much of stress comes from lack of clarity and burning mental calories to figure out what to do. And then you've got to get it into it and then you've got to do it. So like the more you can eliminate that, the lighter weight your work feels and the more time you're spending working actually on the thing, doing what you need to be doing. Awesome. All right. Yogapreneurs, anything else for the roundup? We'll cut this one pretty short here because it's a bit weird, the echoes and stuff here.
It's speech time for us. It's speech time for us, crew.
Speech time. So for any of you that are seeing this and you're like, dang, I wish I came to the summit, there'll be lots of posts about that. We are locking down the dates for the next, spoiler alert, 1 or 2 summits in 2023. Stay tuned on that. One of them we're trying to lock down here at La Jolla again. I totally want you to have FOMO because this place is off the hook and it's only going to keep getting better. So here's the quick like tour through here. Everyone can just like, Terry, do your little spin and Vicky, do your spin. Private beach. Private area. And then the one other thing that I have to show to you guys that I think is awesome that wasn't built when we first booked is this. That's a sauna. That's a steam room. That's a cold plunge. And then there's a little gym workout thing there as well. So you've got the on-site spa. All of us pretty much got a massage on-site as well, which was really awesome. It was a really good balance of being able to really focus and work, but then have some spare time in the afternoon to relax. You can see behind Carol there. Carol can give us the chilling out. We had pool time where we were just chilling, grabbing a coconut, but then also able to work on the business too. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. If you didn't come to the summit and you really want to come to next year's summit, I'm telling you right now, it's basically sold out, but there will be a couple spots. So you need to comment down below in this video and just say like, I need to come to the summit next year.
Josh, we already have the event set up. You can RSVP to the event in the Mighty Network.
Go on to the side tab in the Mighty Network right now. Find next year's summit, the event.
And RSVP.
You can RSVP that event. Here's why that if you want to come, the existing attendees get first dibs. The people who have RSVP'd are going to get number 2, and then it'll probably be sold out then. But then it would move on to everyone else. So if you're like, oh, I really think this is something I want to do, make sure you go RSVP there and we'll hit you up with the details in the next few weeks here as we solidify them. All right, that's it for now. She's still working.
And my team.
Same. Thanks, you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good weekend.